1 to 11 pod, the first official episode of 1 to 11, featuring myself, Johnny, and
I'm Paul.
You may recognise us from the Snap UK. This is a little offshoot. You probably won't, though.
Yeah. There's 150 listeners in San Jose, California, are going to be furious we're cheating on them.
There's not going to be much of a Venn diagram, I think, between the two listenerships. Us two.
Yeah.
But
I think
before we're into American football, football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, was our first love of sport, and we want to delve more into this, I think, which we don't get a chance to.
I think American football is such a game of stats and such a game of it's just repeated set pieces, isn't it? And you don't get emotion, you don't get a high level of opinion because everything can be proven with stats. And if I tell you that Dennis Bergkamp isn't one of the best players in the Premier League, I don't have that much stats where I can prove it wrong. That's my opinion.
It's.
And I thought I'd set you off nice and early.
I feel like modern football has become so stats based, and modern football analysis has become so stats based. And there's good reason for this because betting, exactly. And as well, there's a couple of players right now who are just defying stats, aren't there? There's Messi, Ronaldo, and it's easy for the stands to say, my favourite player is better because he's scored X goals in the last, so many days, and in the Champions League era. And I want to get back to a time when football was not about that, and it wasn't so cold, it wasn't so calculating.
A time of emotion where it was just, I don't have to tell you I can't tell you why I support Manchester United, but I do.
I'm a Leeds fan, to get it out there. And in the last couple of years, I've got back into football because, bizarrely, now it doesn't feel like it's about, even though it's Bielsa, it feels more emotional, and I want to get back to that again. So we thought we'd have a podcast where we would try and pick our best 1 to 11 on a certain thing. And for our first official episode, we have picked one of our favourite times to watch football. And even more beautifully, something else I can get on a high horse about, it was free-to-air. Free-to-air football. Do you remember that, Paul?
Wow, those were the days.
You might not, actually.
No, I think, one of the things I wanted to, and the thing I accidentally played a couple of bars of there.
Yeah.
I sent this to you a couple of days ago, and I think this is part of the reason why we picked this one, is that any male over the age of 30 in the UK will hear this piece of music and immediately be brought back to being in the front room in the 90s.
Yeah, it's Sunday, it's just before you're doing your homework.
It's just that little bit at the end. Just amazing.
It's a banger as well.
Yeah. It's a club banger. We can agree on that. And then just...
How old were you when you realised it was Golazzo and not Golazio?
About 3 days ago.
It was my best friends at school. One of my best friends was Andrew Bunker, part Italian. It was just like, no, do you realise it's Golazzo? That means great goal.
I think there's kind of more to it as well. I mean, part of the reason I got into football was the media really started to gather around Paul Gascoigne, and Paul Gascoigne was my idol. And that the '91 FA Cup semi-final, that thunderbolt of a free kick against Arsenal.
Yeah.
I was too young for the 1990 World Cup. Kind of my first memories of football are Paul Gascoigne being transferred to Lazio.
Same. My first memories are really that 91 FA Cup run and Mark Hughes scoring for Man United against Barcelona.
The Cup Winners' Cup.
Cup Winners' Cup.
That lovely goal where he went kind of round the keeper. He wasn't just going to make it and just got it at the end.
Yeah, superb. Absolutely superb. And then, of course, my next memory is of Gaza getting crocked.
Yeah.
And in his own fault, in the sort of the tackle that ruined both players' careers.
I mean, to be fair, Gascoigne's done some weird stuff, but he wasn't in a lay-by covered in his own shit and torn up banknotes. So,
no.
1-0 Gaza against Gary Charles.
I mean, where was Gary Charles when Raul Moat was?
Exactly. He wasn't trying to save the world, was he?
No.
If you're going to save the world with a fishing rod and a 4-pack, he's our man.
Yeah. So then they had to wait a year effectively for his debut, and
him burping into a microphone at press conference. And...
Yeah. Jimmy Five Bellies.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say to anybody, if you've got the ability to get hold of Paul Gascoigne's first autobiography and just read about him being bored in Italy, it's that I was sat by a pool on holiday and I've never laughed so hard in my life.
It is a great book. I can't like him because he is
not a very nice person.
He's a horrible person. But yeah, anyway.
Great football player. And I think, knowing that capitalising on that, Football Italia was on Channel 4.
Yes.
Because there was such an interest in Italian football. And,
it was there before, but of course, suddenly it was free to air. We all had access to see, this sort of saviour of English football going out and like.
Yeah, I mean, Des Walker was at Sampdoria, you're right. Yeah, Des Walker was in Italian football at the time. Gascoigne was there as well.
Well, do you remember who David Platt was there before him? And
because he went after the 90 World Cup, didn't he? He started at Bari.
Bari, Juventus.
And Sampdoria.
Yeah.
And Lee Sharp was at Sampdoria at one point, wasn't he?
That was
much later.
A really rubbish Sampdoria team.
This was a time where there was such an interest in Italian football off the back of Gaza that
after Italia 90 then sort of peaked it, and then Gaza just exploded it, didn't it? I get
And the best players in the world moved to Italy. They moved to the Italian teams. It
is what sort of Serie A is, not Serie A, La Liga is now, where and it seems a bit more balanced, I guess, because you've got Premier League has some. La Liga has Ronaldo. Then La Liga has.
Serie A has Ronaldo.
Serie A has Ronaldo. So but yeah, it's basically that was where the money was, wasn't it? In the early 90s.
Yeah, all these Fiat and Sirio pumping money into these football clubs as a vanity project. Parmalat going broke and ruining Parma.
But God, we could go on and on. But
this is a time of football that was just very special to me. And you look at the 90s Italian football, it was just better. The best players. It was personalities as well. And and this is I don't want to criticize modern football too much because there's some great parts about it as well. But you look at some of the personalities involved and some of the nicknames. The Divine Ponytail, Harry Kane. Now he's a great striker, great footballer, great goal scorer. A bit vapid.
Yeah. Could you imagine Faustino Asprilla in modern football?
He would be playing. He'd have Nile Rangered out.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably he would have. And it's quite easy to go, to mention, Italian football was, negative, and it is. There were parts of it, but when it was good, God, the games were so brilliant. The players were so excellent. The goals,
excellent.
Oh, so excellent. So how do you define the period we're talking about? So we're going specifically
90 to the end of the 99-2000 season.
So there are some players, because I originally did it on the time that it was based in Channel 4. So there's some players I just had to quickly change. But still, it'll be a pretty decent team, this. So,
I mean, I look forward to just completely contradicting myself on some of my scruples and my principles. I'll put them in for this, and then completely contradicting it, like, further down the team sheet. That's going to be my favourite part by far.
Oh, I'm totally going to do the same. It's and I'm already struggling on my on one player because I'm like, oh. But we'll get into that. So
I think we're going to start in goal.
We're going to start in goal, and in honour, I think we're both on the same formation. We've gone with Saki's 4-4-2.
You cannot go for anything other than 4-4-2 with the 1990s.
Yeah.
There was no other formation.
Well, it was just so dominant, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
And
Arrigo Sacchi's teams playing there, that was a penalty shootout away from winning the World Cup in '94.
Yeah. Well,
it dominated the European Cup, the Champions League.
Well, that is it, isn't it? And I'm sure we'll get on to one of the reasons why they were almost a kick away from the '94 World Cup. Because if he's not mentioned, we've messed up.
We've made a massive mistake. Yeah.
So, but yeah, we start with goalkeeper.
I'm gonna start first. There's gonna be a part of you that thought Buffon, right? But that part of you is wrong
because of my slightly different timescales. He was there, but
if this is anything up to 2001, Buffon. But for me, Gianluca Pagliuca.
I can't argue that.
So, some of the reasons behind it for me, he was part of the Sampdoria team that won the league in '91. He got to a European Cup final. I got destroyed, but got to a European Cup final. He went to Inter for a lot of money. He was just a constant of that time frame. He was Italy's starting keeper in the '94 World Cup. Like I say, he was a penalty kick away from being a World Cup winning keeper.
Yeah.
And you think of some of the keepers that have won the World Cup. He was better than Taffarel, I'll tell you that.
Yes.
He was breathing.
Dida won a World Cup.
Yeah, there's a... But then you see afterwards, it was like... you look at some of the keepers afterwards, so it was Buffon. Neuer.
Yeah. Oh, the 90s... The 90s and 2002 goalkeepers were bad.
But the Italians had this conveyor belt of great goalkeepers. So for Pagliuca, Buffon, Peruzzi, Toldo, these amazing high quality goalkeepers that just you take away the stupidity with Matt Letizia. Massimo Taibbi was very good in Serie A. He gets nowhere near the team. Don't get me wrong, but
Abbiati.
Great goalkeeper. Yeah.
Who were great goalkeepers. There were times when if they were English, they'd have been probably number one. But yeah, Pagliuca, I love a sweeper keeper. And Pagliuca could do that as well. He could play, and he was so athletic until he sort of at the end of the 90s, of course, he got older, but was replaced by Buffon, Toldo. But until then, he was
phenomenal,
so good.
I think because of the time period involved, I think history will look better at Buffon, clearly and correctly.
Yeah, he won a World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, Pagliuca, you can't fault him for them not winning it in '94, but he was a great player, and for me, because of the overall timescale we're looking at, Pagliuca for me.
Oh yeah, he sort of embodies what the time frame we're looking for, doesn't he?
100%.
And as well, Buffon was the world record goalkeeper, for up until possibly like Alisson.
He was I'm sure it was until Alisson, yeah.
Pagliuca also was a world record goalkeeper. He was 7 million when he joined Inter.
I don't think that was broken for a number of years.
Yeah, so it's.
And I remember that coming out as madness. Who'd pay that much money for a goalkeeper?
Yeah, I know. And then you look at him, you watch him play, and you're like, oh yeah, I'd pay that for him.
There's teams that would pay that for a backup now.
Well, yeah. I mean, Chelsea. Look at Chelsea trying to move on from Kepa, who they spent
70 million quid on.
10 times Pagliuca.
Yeah.
But
and then with inflation, Pagliuca's transfer value now is worth £450 million, John.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Even at 53.
Yeah.
Worth it.
So we're unanimous on that one.
Well, yeah, we're unanimous. So let's not even make an argument about this. Where do you want to go next?
Left back.
Okay.
So there's a lock here, but clearly there's a lock here. There's one person who, for longevity, amazing player, just a rock, just one of those players that you could say his name to people who don't know much about football even now, and they'd still know who you meant.
Yeah.
Paolo Maldini.
Yeah. You're telling me in a way that makes you think you might not be picking him.
Not a left back, no. I want him in the squad, but for me, there's one other player I just fell in love with in the 90s. Sinisa Mihajlovic.
I love Sinisa Mihajlovic. I mean, as it happens, he turned out to be horrible.
Oh yeah, I think that's part of the charm, because just those hammers of free kicks he used to just destroy the net with, just being a bit of a bastard. So the two things you want: someone who's a bit of a bastard and can hammer in a free kick.
Yeah.
And he looked like he'd kill you.
I picked Maldini because to me, Maldini didn't move to the centre until the 2000s.
Oh, I just wanted to justify Sinisa Mihajlovic because I loved him. It's got to be Maldini. There's no other choice.
One of my favourite. I can't remember who they were playing, but I loved Sampdoria.
Great team.
Because starting to watch them, I didn't realise at the time just how good they were. I was quite young. I just loved the kit. But one of my first games, I sat there watched with you and Dad. I think Mihajlovic scored 2 free kicks, and instantly then he was my favourite player. And he was until probably about
Recoba.
96.
You loved Recoba.
I did love Recoba, but there's really no space for him in this team.
I mean, he's too lazy to find out where this team is. Bless him.
Oh yeah. But well, I'm not gonna. I've got Maldini as my left back because
I'm going to agree with you.
Because when you see my centre backs, you'll see why. But I think if you didn't have Maldini, then you done messed up, son.
Yeah,
But I understand why, because there's a personal thing, isn't there, as well? Mihajlovic was just. You can watch him pumping in free kicks and be like, yeah, kind of. This is why I got into football.
Yeah, it's like I love Juninho Pernambucano when he was at Lyon, or just Juninho. Yeah. But I loved him because he could just score a free kick from anywhere. I don't really feel he could do much else. But man, he could score a free kick from anywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, there's something spectacular about that.
Yeah.
I
dead ball specialist.
Yeah. So do you want to go through your centre back, your first centre back who isn't Maldini?
Baresi. Franco Baresi.
Yeah. Once again, not really much argument here, is there?
God no. You'd be mad not to put him in.
I mean, we are mad, but yeah, I think we've got to say Franco Baresi was. I mean, he could have the name. He'd be in the team of the 80s as well.
You look at some of the detail for that. I mean, firstly, him and Maldini, but for Baresi in the 90s, 2 European Cups, 4 Serie A's, in the 93-94 season, 21 clean sheets with 15 goals in 34 games. That will never happen again. And he was just cool. In terms of, I don't mean in terms of him, like he wasn't like smoking a fag, riding a motorcycle with a leather jacket after the game. He wasn't in a jazz club after each game, but he just assured on the ball, you know?
Yeah. Also, he was a bastard. As Italian defenders should be. Like, he
wasn't quicker than you. He wasn't better than you. He was just smarter than you.
Yeah. And like how often he'd take the yellow card to
the tactical foul, the master of the Italian tactic.
Yeah, the tactical foul, a tactical handball. I love it. You don't see it enough. So should I tell you who I had in my other centre back?
Yeah,
there's quite a few that you could pick. Because Costa Curta obviously was one.
But I don't want this to turn into some sort of Milan love fest.
And that, unfortunately, my other player is also part of the Milan team. And mainly because I couldn't put him in midfield, which signifies it's Marcel Desailly.
That's a really good shout. That's someone I didn't even think of.
He could play sweeper, defender, where he was better. He was best as defender. And sort of towards the end of his time at Milan, he was playing midfield, defensive midfield.
Before he went to Chelsea and just became like big lumbering centre back.
Still great though.
Yeah.
The
scourge of Ron Atkinson, Marcel Desailly.
Oh yeah. So he's useful wherever he goes.
Yeah. But nobody thinks of the jewellery sellers, do they?
No.
Big Ron kept them in business.
He moved to Milan in '93, straight after success in Marseille, which is always going to come with an
asterisk.
Yeah. But when he moved to Milan, of course, they won the Champions League there as well. I think when he wasn't winning, he was in the final at least. I think they lost to Ajax.
That was the year he played where they destroyed Cruyff's Barcelona 4-0.
Yeah.
And I think Desailly is a good shout. I think the only other one I had on my mind was Fabio Cannavaro.
Yeah,
I wanted some love. I had nothing else in my team for Parma. Spoiler alert. And I wanted some representation of Parma because I love them as a team. And Cannavaro was the one for me. I mean, there is a right back who's just come into my mind who I've not written down, who clearly is the one for Parma.
Exactly. which is why I'm going to go with Desailly because my right back is a Parma player.
And I think we're unanimous on right back as well then.
Yeah, Candela.
Yeah, Vincent Candela.
I know. Did he play for Parma?
God knows. God knows.
I'm trying to go back into
I mean, you think there's some other players there. Like, let me think of. Let me just make sure I've got the timescale right on.
Oh no, he was Roma. He was Roma. Sorry, yeah. There were so many good players at Parma, but I think when we do the 2000s, they might get more representation.
The only other one I was particularly thinking of. There's another one, Aldair.
Yes. Very, very good.
And you think about him as that lumbering beast of the early 2000s. He was solid in the early 90s.
Yeah.
But do you know what? I'm gonna go with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So Desailly.
Desailly.
It would add some physicality, not and the.
I mean, if you had Mihalovic, you wouldn't have to worry about physicality. Just making that clear.
Yeah.
And with a midfield of Boban and Gattuso, physicality is not the problem.
I mean, as well, we also have forgotten Alessandro Nesta.
See, for me, Nesta was too young. I don't think Nesta truly came into his own until later on.
90s.
I think we're talking, late 90s, early 2000s. If this was the team of the 2000s, Nesta is a lock. There is no question.
Yeah, but he sort of emerged in the 90s. But yeah, he will come on. It'll probably be in the next time we come back into Serie A.
When it's Cannavaro and Nesta with absolutely no debate.
No debate.
Yeah.
So, right back.
So, I wrote down 3. But based on the discussion we've had, the first one I've written down is the one you've gone for as well. So I'm just going to throw out the honourable mentions here. So, Javier Zanetti joined Inter in 95. So there was 5 years in the league. Just amazing player. I think maybe I kind of have the rose-tinted glasses on because of the longevity and knowing how good he would continue to be for them until he was, 906. And he's playing his 1800th game for them.
Can you just repeat who it was because the connection just cut out there?
Javier Zanetti.
Of course, yeah. He's on my list. I may mention him later.
Okay. The other one I have is Christian Panucci. Panucci.
Great
player. But the choice that can't be argued, in my opinion, is Lilian Thuram.
Yeah. Would go on to play for Juventus. But yeah, joined about 96, wasn't it? He joined straight after Euro 96, I think. Was there and was a Parma player until about 2001, where I think he became the world's most expensive defender.
Yeah, 96 joined Parma, exactly right. Yeah, joined Juve in 2001. But he was just marauding. He could go forward. He was great in attack. He was just as good in attack as he was in defence. He was a man mountain as well. You weren't quicker than him. You weren't stronger than him. You weren't smarter than him. He literally had everything.
Yeah.
And if you had issues, if you lost one of your centre backs, he could slot in and make it a back three. No questions asked. Just great player.
Oh yeah. I think it's sort of forgotten. It's sort of just how good he was. I think because he's so good. It's a shame his career sort of petered out, but I guess that's age. I think as well he had heart issues, didn't he? So his time at Barcelona was affected by them. But but that's in the 2000s, so I'm not worried about it. But yeah, I mean, just stunning player. Of course, won the World Cup in 1998.
And that semi-final goal against Croatia, I realise it wasn't done whilst he was playing in Serie A, but that goal alone made him my right back. I watched a documentary about the France '98 World Cup run. I think like the FIFA official World Cup documentary of the France team. That semi-final goal against Croatia, oh my God.
Great, wasn't it? I think it was one of the only 2 goals he scored for France were in that game.
Yeah.
He scored 2, didn't he? I mean, can we mention Parma?
Yeah, of course.
I still have a soft spot for Parma.
I think they had the coolest kit as well.
They had the second coolest kit. Sampdoria was always better.
Lecce had the best kit. You were right.
Parma as well had the kit with the tie-ups, laces,
like toggle style.
Toggles, yeah. Oh, superb. And so they won the UEFA Cup and Coppa Italia 98-99 with Buffon in goal, Cannavaro and Thuram.
That was a great team.
Yeah, as well with Crespo up front as well.
And
Chiesa.
They won the '99 UEFA Cup as well as Parma.
Yeah, they were just so good.
Oh, 100%. They were great. They were absolutely great.
But I think I also had Cafu, as I mentioned, as a right back, but he didn't join until '97. I think he'd be a team of the 2000s candidate.
He's one of those players who he never stopped being good. But for me, if gun to my head, Thuram.
Same as gun to my head. I picked Thuram, and luckily our gun isn't to our head. So of sound mind and body, I'm picking Thuram. So, where do you want to go next? Should we go left midfield? Would you start with left back?
Yeah, left midfield. Happy to go there.
Left midfield is my favourite player of all time.
Pavel Nedved.
Yes.
No question.
I love him. I love him so much.
Because we spoke about Parma, obviously we've spoken about Milan, and we've spoken about how great they were. We've spoken a little bit around the Inter team. We've spoken a little bit around Juve. For me, the Lazio team, oh my God.
Yeah.
That Lazio team under, when Sven-Göran Eriksson wasn't a punchline.
Yeah. He was the best manager in the world, I guess.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe not, but he was certainly one of the more successful ones. And but the best sort of Lazio team was 2000. So they're out of this, but he was part of that.
He was phenomenal.
Anywhere on the left-hand side, wasn't he? But I think I love about Nedved as well is it's almost the fact that he was so unlucky. he when it got to major finals, he wasn't there, and the one he did appear in,
they lost on penalties.
He lost on no, he lost on golden goal, didn't he, to Germany?
Oh God, yes, of course, yes.
Whenever Juve
96, yes.
Whenever Juve got to a final, he was suspended. And then when Czech Republic got back, was it Euro
96?
No, the one to the next one, I guess in 2000.
Yeah, the Belgium and Holland one.
When the Czechs got to the semi-final, he got injured and missed the extra time, which they went out in. And you until then they were the best team on the park, but without him, they weren't. And it was his proximity to success that I really love.
It's like Michael Ballack. I know it's completely obviously nothing to do with Italian football, but just one of those players that should have been in the position to win everything, but didn't.
So, look, it's such an underappreciated factor, and it's probably something I'm going to go on about again, but I find, to judge players on, well, they've won the league and they won the champion. It doesn't matter. It's a team, and I find that really cold. But I just loved watching Pep Nedved with a ball at his feet.
He was just an amazing player to watch because just that shaggy blonde mop.
Yeah.
And he had everything. He had absolutely everything. And for me, he's unanimous choice for left wing.
And I mean, when he was at Juventus, he could move more central because he was signed to replace the greatest player I've ever seen in my life, which is something else. But he's just because this person's the greatest doesn't mean he's my favourite. Nedved was always my favourite.
Oh, absolutely. It's
even when he played Leeds, he sived down Alan Maybury, and he got banned for it from UEFA. But I still love him. So,
well, to be fair, Alan Maybury was shite.
So. Yeah, he was. So, but still,
yeah, he played more games than I did. So
exactly, and I just love Nedved.
I'm going to give you no competition, no other suggestion for me. Nedved, yeah, I'm fully on board with that.
I think he's still involved with the club now. He's still involved with Juventus, isn't he? He's vice chairman.
Yeah, like Zanetti's vice chairman of Inter.
Yeah, and Maldini was at
Milan. It's
Milan.
just we like you so much, we'd like you to stay around, but here's some money.
I think Maldini's
go and drink cocktails.
Maldini's left, hasn't he? I think he's fallen out with Milan, which is but that's another story. Do you want to move into the centre?
Yeah. So one of my first centre mids, and I'm playing slightly more attacking centre mid here because he has to be in the team, but I don't want him up front.
Yeah.
The divine ponytail himself, Mr. Baggio, Roberto Baggio, the man who, when he left to go to Juventus, they rioted for 3 days.
Yeah.
The world record transfer holder, the man who, for a lot of people, is defined by a penalty miss that's so unfair because he was so good in that tournament. He's such a good player.
The only reason they were within a penalty kick of winning is Roberto Baggio.
Absolutely.
Il Divino Cudino. Il Divino Cudino. And I don't speak Italian. But yeah, the divine ponytail. There's as well. There's something. He was quite introverted, wasn't he? As a person.
And I think he's one of those players that he's not linked to a team.
No, he sort of wherever he was been, I think they love him, and that's rare, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was the redemption as well that happened in the 90s for him. So that season he spent at Bologna.
Oh yeah, superb.
22 goals in 30 games for a team that he shouldn't have been scoring 22 goals in 30 games for. So someone who played for Fiorentina, Inter, AC, Bologna and Juve. 5 different teams in the 90s, always around, stalwart of the Italian national team, has to be in this team. So that's where I thumbed him in.
I've thumbed him in, but I thumbed him in up off the front man.
Okay. I couldn't
so,
move all that was my give in the 4-4-2. I couldn't move somebody back. I had to have two central strikers.
Well, should we go through and then we'll work it out at the end? Because let's go through some of the other players. Who else have you got in midfield?
Zidane.
I've heard about him. I think he's all right.
Yeah, just a phenomenal player. Just, this is one of those things as well, like linked to what we said earlier. Stat-wise, Zinedine Zidane wasn't. It was above average, but he wasn't, one of those people who, oh my God, look at the amount of dribble past he's done this season.
You wouldn't measure him in XG, would you?
No, absolutely not. He was just. There's certain players in football, and I may have different people than you for this, but there's certain players who, when they got on the ball, you got excited.
Yeah.
So, Gaza, Zidane, early 2000s Wayne Rooney. As soon as they got on the ball, oh my God, something's gonna happen. Late 2000s Gareth Bale. When he's on the ball, Cristiano Ronaldo at any point, Messi at any point, when they get on the ball, something might happen here.
I love a player. He makes it look easy, and that's what you want to watch. Like, yeah. I love. I'm a Leeds fan. I love watching David Batty. I love a bloke who's going to play with a knife between his teeth, and basically he's going to run all day and try and
well, there's that. Wasn't there that footage that went online recently of Batty winding up Mancini?
Yeah,
just being a knob.
Just a knob, but
just being an absolute knob, and but doing it with a massive smile on his face.
Yeah, and it's going to come back throughout the episodes of players who try hard and sort of
they meant something to you, but you can't really translate it into a stat.
Yeah, and Zidane's almost the opposite of that, because everything he did was just so graceful. And
there's that. They made that film later when he was at Madrid, didn't they? They just all the cameras on him, and you think about it. If you put that for, you put that for any other footballer. So what I've done is I've set up 23 cameras around the stadium that are going to focus on Neil Shipley today. Now, what I've done, I've set up 23 cameras to look up at Jamie Cureton.
Could you imagine who's the best midfielder in the Premier League right now? I'm trying to think.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Do you know what?
I'd really like to watch that.
I'd watch that. So that's a bad example, but could you imagine Jordan Henderson being soundtracked by Mogwai?
No.
Like a sort of a German brass band of a that would be more Jordan Henderson, but sort of a glacial soundscape. Actually, a game where he didn't do much. I have the film. He basically they go 1-0 down, and he just turns up. He comes alive, gets them back into the game. Is absolutely just the star of the show, and then gets sent off. And I love that.
I think that's the thing with Zidane. There's just always that bit of bastard as well.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
That Algerian person in him, that Algerian that anger. There's
a street kid in him, isn't there?
Yeah, that Algerian street kid in Marseille and.
Yeah. And I remember my favourite ever performance I've ever seen was the first leg against Man United in '99, where him and someone else I'm going to mention ran the show, and I've never enjoyed a midfield partnership like I have that game. And maybe I'm looking at it in rose-tinted glasses, and actually it wasn't that good, and probably Man United just made it easy for them.
I think it was one of these things where when you're not a Man United fan as well, because that 98-99 season, obviously I don't want to go in too much, but United were winning nearly everything. We lost 4 games that season. You wanted, I mean, much like when Watford beat Liverpool this season, you wanted to see the shine come off the apple.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that might be part of it, but they were just so good. And like they made Roy Keane and Scholes look, I imagine, very ordinary, and not many players did that. And he just had a grace. And just if you're under 20 listening to this, just Google Zinedine Zidane, France v Portugal.
Oh God!
Euro 2000, and just one of the most singularly brilliant displays of touch.
Just the ball just stuck to him like glue.
I mean, you could do that whenever, but to do that on such a grand stage, great. So I can't really argue with many of them. I've also got Edgar Davids.
Okay, I went for another Dutch player. I went probably the other part of that decade.
Is it Frank?
Was Frank
Wijkaard, who weren't bad. I'm not gonna lie. So
I think the other one I'm going to put. There's another Dutchman, and I didn't know whether to put him up front either. I ain't talking about Van Basten. Ruud Gullit. Because great at Milan, good at Sampdoria for that season before he went to Chelsea.
Yeah. I mean, you could sort of play him defence, midfield, attack.
He was just you could put him in goal, and I'm sure he'd give you an amazing performance.
Yeah. I've got another couple as well. I haven't put him in because I didn't want it to be too Milanese. But as a defensive midfielder, Albertini.
And I think this is what he was one I wrote down as well. And I was thinking of a Rijkaard, a Albertini, because for all these great attacking talents of the 90s,
someone has to hold it together, don't they?
You need a linchpin. You need that water cannon. You need that thing that, in the early 2000s was the Makelele position. But you had somebody else doing that for years.
The water carrier, really, wasn't it? Which is a totally horrible way to put it. Because
it's somebody who's so much better than that. Someone who just makes a team tick. And I think you have so many underrated players. I know he's someone who, the more we talk about football, the more we look at Michael Carrick.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what Michael Carrick did, but Man United were a better team when he played for them.
Yeah. I guess it's what is sort of oversold now with Jordan Henderson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but he's the best player. He's the best midfielder in the world, John. He's the captain of the world champions, John. Yeah.
We're filming this, so you can see my face.
I think for me, if you're doing an Italian team of the 90s, you need a water carrier. For me, and I think Albertini is a great shout because he was constant throughout the 90s.
Yeah.
And
as well, a Parma player I really liked, Dino Baggio, who quite underrated, but he was integral to that Parma team that was, I think, so loved.
The problem with Dino Baggio was he wasn't his brother.
Well, not related, are they?
That's how everybody saw it, didn't they? That's how everybody saw it, didn't they?
That's how everyone. It took me. When I was a kid, I believed he was his they were brothers, but yeah, they're not brothers.
Absolutely.
But
he did have. There was Eddie Baggio.
Oh yeah,
who was shite.
Yeah. And he was. Didi Baggio was also really good at the World Cup. But I think Albertini is better. So yeah, and once again another Milanese player, is Boban. It's Zvonimir Boban.
Yeah, just a good old-fashioned.
Well, he wasn't off that. He was very skillful, but
I think the thing for me with Boban was he was great, but he wasn't there long enough.
He was there longer than Zidane, but he wasn't great long enough. And I think it'd be just because I like him as a person, rather than because he was a great player. So, should we have? Let's carry on. We'll work out our midfield at the end because I think it's going to depend on the forwards.
Yeah, I'm happy with that
as well. So, right midfield,
Rui Costa.
Yeah, I really wanted Rui Costa in my team, but because I've got Zidane, I couldn't have two players like that. So Zidane went over him. But I love Rui Costa.
And I think
no one played a reverse pass like Rui Costa. No one has ever done it as good as him.
I realise it's not the time frame, but just longevity as well. Because Euro 2004, he destroyed England.
He was a sub as well.
Yeah, he's just. But for me, say again.
Do you remember his goal against us?
I do. I will share it with you again shortly.
I watched it last night, bizarrely, and it's so good. Oh, but okay.
I think
for me, okay, I'm gonna submit. I have Zanetti at right midfield.
I don't think he was right midfield. I think
he did. He was a wing back, but he
was. I think for me, I want Rui Costa in there, and it's if you want to argue with it,
in there. Let's put Rui Costa in there.
Send us hate on Twitter. I don't care.
I don't care. We haven't got a Twitter account yet.
It's our team.
Yeah, solid Rui Costa. Just because I have to have him in the team.
Yeah, so I think there's one. There's a lot of forwards here, right? But I think for me, there's one that will be unanimous. Gabriel Batistuta.
Gabigol.
Oh my God, what a player!
Yeah, he's in. So let's not even debate it. But let's just
because if you put Batistuta in, you have to put Rui Costa in because Rui Costa made Batistuta, vice versa.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot more to that Fiorentina team at the time, and there was some great, like Chiesa was there, wasn't he? And
yeah, he was there later. And I think Batistuta would have been great wherever he was, but it helps because Batistuta went to Roma as well afterwards. 2000, won the league with them, and got his Serie A title, which he would never get at Fiorentina, obviously. But once again, as well, just another great kit, Fiorentina.
That Nintendo sponsored kit.
Oh yeah. I just love him. I think one of my obviously I'm a Leeds fan. I love Bielsa, and Argentina in '98 with Bielsa. He only plays one man up front, and which meant that he had to play Crespo or Batistuta. And could you imagine any other manager in the world looking at both those players and going, "I'm only going to pick one of them"?
Yeah. I mean, this is also it shows the the quality of that Argentina team in '98. Could you imagine a forward having the option of Batistuta or Crespo now?
No.
Great players.
Yeah.
For me, Batistuta, if you're looking at a team in the '90s, is also for me that I also kind of we brought emotion into this, didn't we? So for me,
yeah,
Fiorentina went down and he stayed, and he took them back up, and I love that. That for me is he's just someone who he was loyal to the point where he could leave with a clean conscience to go to Roma and win the Scudetto.
Yeah. He was over. So when he went to Roma, he was over 30. How much did they pay for him?
A ridiculous amount. I can't remember.
36.2 million euros.
It
took until 2017 for that to be broken, and that was by Bonucci when he joined Milan, in a strange spending spree. But yeah, I don't want to talk about transfer fees. If you're doing specifically for that, then fine. But I don't think it matters too greatly. Once again, it's emotion. When he got the ball, the hairs on the neck stood up.
Yeah, he was just one of those people who just. It didn't matter who you supported, you liked him.
Oh yeah. Apart from maybe Juventus or something, but
yeah.
Yeah, just a superb player. And yeah, let's not debate it because he's in. Who did you have with him? Because quite frankly, it could be one of 50 players.
So I'm going to talk about a man who I'm going to give you some quotes on the man I chose. Born offside. The man was born offside. It was, I think, one of the things I liked about Italian football were the people who just they had something about them. And for me, Filippo Inzaghi, he was the top scorer. He was the Serie A top scorer in the 90s for Atalanta.
Yeah.
He went to Juve and Milan as well. He was just one of those players who kind of summed up Italian football for me because he wasn't the quickest. He wasn't the most physically strong. He just scored goals.
Yeah.
But he seemed a bit of a knob as well. That's one of the things I liked. And I almost see him as like, I see Harry Kane now as Filippo Inzaghi.
Oh, no, because Harry Kane can control a football.
I just want to shit on Harry Kane.
Yeah.
But
I love.
I mean that as a compliment, though. I don't mean that as Harry Kane's a bit of a bastard. I mean it as a compliment because Harry Kane's a great player, but he's almost the same mold because there's not anything special about him, is there? He's not the strongest. He's not the best in the air, but
he's a combination of many things.
He just seems to score goals, which is what I like about Inzaghi.
The thing is, Kane can score different goals.
Inzaghi could just score from anywhere within the 12-yard box.
Yeah, and like apparently, like when he was at Milan, they used to take the mick because they couldn't believe just how bad his touch was to be a professional footballer. And actually, I think his best years were at Milan, which were in the 2000s. So,
I liked him at Juve. I liked him at Atalanta.
Yeah.
I think also to be the top scorer at Atalanta deserves credit. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some terrible players who were top scorers. Marcio Amoroso, Igor Protti.
Yeah. I mean,
when I say terrible, I'm a Man United fan. I know terrible strikers.
I'm a Leeds fan. I've known terrible strikers. So I'm going to mention some of the players I didn't pick.
I've got a list of other people I didn't pick as well, and I'm sure we'll agree on. Mancini, yeah.
Beppe Signori.
Great player. That I think very, very... I realise this is a hard thing to say when he was as good as he was. I think he was slightly underrated because he was at a Lazio team that wasn't good, and by the time the Lazio team became good, he wasn't there.
He was, I think he's very much underrated in this country. I think probably not in Italy.
Yes, I think that's a smart way of...
in a defensive league, he got 26 goals in 92, 23 in 93 from 24 games, 17 in 94, 24 in 95, and once again, this is stats. This is really boring. But he was so good, and only played 28 times for Italy.
Shows you how good they were.
Exactly. Vialli, Gianluca Vialli, was a wonderful player.
I mean, for me, Vialli with hair, great.
Even at Juventus, he wasn't. I mean, I suppose that is most of his time in the 90s. He was. He wasn't as good at Juventus as he was at Sampdoria, but he won a lot there. But yeah, if I could have the Sampdoria one over the Juventus one, but I think there's a bit of the 80s there. I mean, you can. Let's not. He was only there 2 years. Fit, but we can't ignore Ronaldo.
Oh yeah, I think if you're looking at impact, he
scored 59 in 99.
Yeah, won the UEFA Cup as well.
Yeah,
Coppa Italia, I believe.
Sorry,
Coppa Italia as well. I'm not entirely sure on that. I'll double check, but
we can double check on that. But I mean, you can go to the he was the Ballon d'Or winner in 99.
No.
98?
No.
Oh. He was Ballon d'Or winner during his time at Inter.
Zidane then Rivaldo, wasn't it?
Oh, possibly, yeah. Yeah.
I think I agree with what you're saying, but I think for me he wasn't in the league long enough.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think the one person I'd like to bring to the table is Alessandro Del Piero.
Yeah, I can't believe it's taken me that long to bring him up. I'd have Del Piero over
Inzaghi
in a heartbeat. But then I'd have Beppe Signori over both of them.
So there's one other person I want to raise, and I feel it comes into a Ronaldo argument as well. Marco van Basten.
Yeah.
When he was there, oh my God.
I remember when I was first watching Football Italia as well. Do you remember Dejan Savicevic?
Yes, great player.
He not for long enough. You wouldn't get him in the best of the 90s, but I just loved watching him. I
mean, if you were looking at the best of 91 to 95, yeah. Dejan Savicevic would you wouldn't even think twice.
Yeah, just a wonderfully skillful player. He scored a great goal against Barcelona, the lob. As well, George Weah.
Great player. Yeah, I think, again, it was for me, I think It was that, I believe that might have been Lecce, where he just literally ran the field to
Yeah,
score. I remember that there were certain goals that just were everywhere.
yeah.
I'm sure that goal made the news.
I remember we were watching the FA Cup on BBC. It must have been the FA Cup because it was on BBC. And they, at half time, instead of showing the highlights of the game, they showed George Weah scoring from and taking it from Verona. Against Verona. From his own corner, and just a wonderful goal. And but yeah, sort of a great player. I'm not gonna. I'd rather have Beppe Signori. I'd rather have Baggio. But I mean,
well, I think in terms of where we are, so
okay,
if we're going 90s, 80s, 90s game show, your goalkeeper, you can defend. You got them; they're safe. You've won them. So we've got Pagliuca in goal. Midfield. So Pagliuca in goal, Maldini left back, Baresi, Desai, Thuram. Nedved on the left wing, Rui Costa on the right wing. If we're looking at the things we've spoken about, Albertini had to be in because you have to have that water carrier, that unsung hero.
Yeah. And are we going to drop Zidane?
No, I'd keep Zidane because I then have a front line of Batistuta and Baggio.
Okay, I'd take that.
Okay, so we've got the lovely Diamond 4-4-2 or the
4-1-2-1-2.
Yeah,
even if it's probably a 4-1-2-1-1-1.
Yeah, I mean that in vogue 90s 4-4-2 that you could do whatever you wanted with it. You could just put players and make it do whatever you wanted it to do.
Malleable, wasn't it?
So Pagliuca, Maldini, Baresi, Desai, Thuram, Albertini, Nedved, Rui Costa, Zidane, Batistuta, Baggio.
I'll accept that. I'm happy with those. There's not much compromise there, is there? And I think there's quite a few players there that we can make a bench, or we're not going to make a bench. If you're going to have a manager,
Saki, Lippi, Trapattoni.
I was going to have Lippi. It was the 60s. It was the 80s. I'd pick Saki before Trapattoni. But
I mean, like if we were doing the 2000s as Ancelotti, there's no one else. But I think, I think there's one other person to consider at manager.
Capello.
Yeah.
I think for this timeline, I think Lippi is the winningest.
Mister. We're not going to call him manager. We're going to call him Mister.
Yes, Mr. Lippi is the person. So
absolutely, I will agree with you there.
Then of the final team.
So I'd like to make it clear: if you disagree with us, you should have been here when we were recording it.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you wanted your opinion,
we'd have invited you, and we didn't.
Exactly. So yeah.
But actually, we do have a Twitter account, and actually, if you have teams that a theme you'd love to discuss and pick your favorite 1 to 11, get in touch.
Absolutely, get involved, and there's lots of things that we'd like to do. There's lots of subjects we'd like to cover, and if you feel you listen to this and how dare you put in Demetrio Albertini?
Did you? Why not Del Piero?
If you're actually,
this is a personal thing. We're not saying statistically this is the best. We're not saying, it's just emotionally this is who we love. If you want that sort of analysis,
go and read Inverting the Pyramid.
Yeah, go shout at Gabriele Marcotti, and go and shout at James Richardson, who, don't chat at him because he's really lovely.
And him presenting that show is the reason we chose it as the first subject.
Exactly. It's. I remember it was the Saturday show as well. Where they go through Gazzetta dello Sport, etc., and they'd have slight access to players, and it was a little bit silly at times.
Yeah,
like it was a bit more fun than so you could, until Sokoyen came along and sort of attached itself to that sort of football banter culture, which I hate. It was not taking itself too seriously.
The one thing I remember more than anything was the report they did on Gianluca Vialli having 6 toes on his right foot.
Yeah.
I don't know why that sticks with me, but that was a Football Italia.
Yeah.
That was a Football Italia article. There's certain things that stick with you, and for me, that was just a time of football that stuck with me, a style of football that stuck with me, some players that just stuck in my mind as these world-beating players, and this, the best players went to that league, unless they were English.
Yeah. And it still saddens me that there aren't more English players going abroad.
But we're seeing it more now, though, aren't we? In terms of your Sancho, Panzo, Amici, Lookman,
Smalling,
Smith Rowe went to Hoffenheim, didn't he?
Yeah.
Reece Oxford is at Augsburg.
Yeah.
So we're seeing more, but I think they're going
generationally. Yeah, but there's a couple of generations that haven't done that. I think it affects our international performance as well.
I mean, the elephant in the room for us is the reason why so many players went over there. So when you look at it was the fallout of Heysel and British clubs being banned from European football. That led to players going abroad to seek a living. So that's how you ended up with certain players making Italy seem like a viable option. So Ray Wilkins and Mark Haitley, Luther Blissett.
Yeah.
What do you mean he's not John Barnes? We've not signed the wrong player.
Yeah, it's just a shame there aren't, from Gaza until Bale, effectively, there's like Paul Ince,
Steve McManaman,
Paul Ince, Steve McManaman in their prime.
Paul Lambert,
Michael Owen and Jonathan Woodgate.
Paul Lambert at Dortmund.
Yeah.
Just for me, more than anything, because the man in our team of Zinedine Zidane.
Yeah.
He found Zidane in his pocket after the 97 Champions League.
Yeah. Should we change? Put Baggio back and no, Zidane. Yeah. And yeah, so but if you are, we do have a Twitter page. It is one second.
It's not just been set up at all. It's come with a lot of planning.
At the 1, as in number, 2, the word, 11, the number, pod, which is really complicated. So the 1 to 11 pod. Get in touch, say hello. If you disagree, fine. We're here to start a debate. But you can't tell us. You don't. You can tell us why you think someone's better, but you can't tell why I love.
You can't tell me what. yeah, you can't tell me why Sinisa Mihajlovic was a great player. I think we're open to debate, but sod off if you call me wrong.
Yeah, no, it is. So, but yeah, do get in touch. We'll have a website at some point when I can be asked. Until then, we'll hopefully see you soon. We're going to create a few of these, put them out. But of course, as well, in the meantime, if you have any interest in American football, listen to the Snap UK,
which is an amazingly well-organised podcast with a litany of regular hosts.
Yes, the opposite of this.
Absolutely.
But yeah, get involved, say hello. But as well, yeah, please, if you have an 11 you'd love to start to set, get in touch. We'd love to get you on. Until then, stay safe. I hope you're staying indoors. And we'll see you guys on the other side, I'm sure.
Yep. Stay at home, wash your hands, stay safe. See you later.
Yeah, guys. Bye.
Campionato di calcio italiano.